and weiter. All right. So meaning the Jewish people below in this world caused the mitzvahs to take root, referring to the mitzvahs which descended from Hashem's will to become invested in physical objects. This is the idea of calling the Jewish people Yaakov, referring to the Jewish people as Yaakov. What's the big idea of Yaakov? Well, with Yaakov, we have this very interesting thing. We have, let's see if I can draw a picture. Let's see how good my artistic skills are. I already know they're not that good, especially with a thing here. So we have the heel of the foot. What do you call a, if you have a heel, right? What do you call a heel in Hebrew?
Akev.
Akev. Akev is the heel. So that's, Akev, of course, is in the name Yaakov, right? He was holding on to the heel of his brother. That's quite a thing to give your son, to name your son Yaakov. We called him heel. And not the good kind of heel. I mean, in English, you have, I should call on David for the puns here, but you have to heal someone from an illness or to heal, to follow. But this heel means this is like he was a real heel, right? That's not a compliment, is it? And to say that's what I'm going to name my child Yaakov.
They say time heals all wounds, or time wounds all heals.
Yeah, right. There you go. There you have it. It works both ways. Neither of them are true. I guess, well, with enough time, right? Okay. But moving right along, I asked for it. I can't complain. I asked for it. Moving right along. So that's the Yaakov. Now the question is, what is the Yud? The Yud in Yaakov's name, right? The Yaakov. So the Yud represents the Chachma in the brain of a person, okay? You're going to imagine that's the mind of a person, okay? I don't have a great dexterity here with this device. And even if I did, I wouldn't, I'm not an artist. But anyway, you get the idea. So the idea of Yaakov is the Yud, Akev, and here as the Alter Rebbe explains, the Yud, which represents the Chachma wisdom that descends below, here we are, that descends below to the level of the heel, representing the lowly physical heel. So this is the whole idea. Now, how do we erase everything? There we go. So the Jewish people in this physical world, which is called the Akev, the heel of all existence, brings down the level of the Yud, bring down the level of the Yud, the highest level of Hashem's wisdom that contains his inner desire and will for the mitzvahs into the physical world through their actual performance of them. This is why they are referred to as in the verse Yaakov, because why are they called Yaakov? Once again, the whole idea here is this is the whole concept of bringing the highest of the high down into the lowest of the low. Which name are we going to use for that? That's going to be the name of Yaakov. So Habayim Yashresh Yaakov. And as a result, Yisrael flourished and blossomed, like emerging and blossoming from the concealment to a revealed state. And through coming down into the lowest realm, that is the only way that we can affect the blossoming and the flowering. Right? So the fruit is going to be planted in the earth, in the ground, And from that situation, what's going to blossom forth? A plant which will ultimately bud and flower. The revelation from the concealment. All of that was contained within the seed, right? This explains why, the statement, although I don't agree with the statement, but there's a sentiment that I'd like to relate about it. There's the old saying, es ist schwer zu sein a Yid. People would say, and it's a very unfortunate thing that people would say, that it's hard to be a Jew. It's an unfortunate sentiment, very unfortunate. In fact, there was a fellow who had gone to Reb Moshe Feinstein, and he was complaining about his son who was not keeping Torah or mitzvahs, wasn't following the ways of the Torah. And during the course of the conversation, this father was commenting how it's schwer zu sein a Yid, it's hard to be a Jew. And Reb Moshe asked him, he said, well, do you frequently refer to this phrase? This is schwer zu sein a Yid? He says, yeah, it's on my tongue frequently. Shagura b'fiv, as they say in Hebrew. So Reb Moshe said, maybe you shouldn't say that so often. Maybe that's what your son was picking up on, was this is schwer zu sein a Yid, so he decided he doesn't want to be one. He doesn't want to act like one. And it's just, But the bottom line is that it's challenging to be a Jew. How is that? It's challenging to be a Jew, and that's the name Yisrael, which we're going to get here. That's the Yotzi Tzuforach Yisrael in a moment, right? So if it's challenging, so here's the question, right? So getting back to the schwer zu sein a Yid, we have to deal with persecution, anti-Semitism, with a lot worse than what we've had today. Today we're seeing it rear its ugly head in a horrible way. We've dealt with a lot worse in history. And then in keeping Torah and keeping mitzvahs and keeping ourselves on the path of Hashem, there's so many different things that get in the way that a person could arrive to the conclusion that it is hard to be a Jew. But it's the wrong word to use. It's the wrong word because it puts the focus on as if the purpose of all of these problems is to make life difficult on you. If something is hard, the focus is on the hardship, on the hardness of it. Whereas when you say it is a challenge, now you have shifted the whole perspective to the purpose of the hardness. As in, boy, this game is really challenging. You could say this game is really hard. Then my question would be for you, so don't play it. If the game is really hard, don't play it. Well, I like playing it. So you mean it's challenging, right? It's a challenge to overcome. And that's what we seek in life. Whether we know it or not, we are seeking a challenge. And sometimes we get tired from seeking the challenge and overcoming the challenge. Then we say it's hard. But it's not really hard. It's a challenge. And the truth of the matter is that we have the ability to overcome that challenge. So it's challenging. It's made this way. It's made that the world is against us. The people are against us. We have all of these challenges. And then even our own animal soul seems to be against us and against us finding any peace. It's a challenge. And are you up to the challenge? I'll answer that for you. You are. Even if you don't know it, you are up to the challenge. So this is the whole idea of the seed coming down into the earth. They say, what is this? I'm surrounded by earth. I'm surrounded by dirt. That is where the plant can start growing. And that's where you can have the fruit tree to come forth and blossom and fruit and become revealed, to bring it from a state emerging from concealment to the revealed state. So through sowing in the mitzvahs in this world, in the time of galus and exile in a manner of Yaakov, we reap the harvest of the revelation of these mitzvahs in the time of the Geula redemption, when we will all be on the level of Yisrael. Listen, and now this answers your question, Yisrael, which is that we see that this is the idea of planting the mitzvahs in Galus, in Egypt, specifically in the state of exile, right? Now we say in the morning davening, we say, for he sows righteousness, salvation sprouts through sowing, which represents doing mitzvahs and giving tzedakah. It is for our benefit and causes salvation to sprout. For surely Hashem himself could have provided for the poor, but it's only in order to give us the merit of accomplishing the sprouting of salvation that he made some people require receiving charity from us, which brings the true power and nature of the mitzvahs into revelation from the state of concealment through our performance of the mitzvahs. Wow. So if you see somebody who's collecting money from you next time, has anyone ever come to you to ask for money and you've been kind of upset and put upon? Why are they asking me? Why do they? Everyone, they all want. Everyone wants tzedakah. Everybody wants, and I don't know. That seems to be the complaint of the wealthy. I don't know if we have any. If we have, maybe we have some wealthy people here. The people who aren't so wealthy usually can relate and give, and everyone here is a good neshama, good soul. We don't have such thoughts, but sometimes people are upset. They feel put upon. Someone's asking me for money. Next time somebody asks you for help, for financial assistance, you remember the only reason that they don't have is so that in order that I can give them. Hashem made this poor person lacking for only 1 point for me to be able to help them so that I'll become a better person. Wow, that gives you a whole different perspective. Imagine if all of the money that you gave to tzedakah at the end of the year, you had to give a thank you letter to all of the people to whom you gave. Thank you for giving me the opportunity of being a better person through giving tzedakah. The way the world is that the people who receive are supposed to send out thank you letters and say, thank you so much for giving. But really, the givers are the ones who should be sending out thank you letters. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to assist and to fulfill Hashem's plan in the world and bring salvation to my own soul. Ha! Now there's another perspective changer, isn't it? And this is the intent of what King David HaMelech. Okay, that's an interesting one. This is the intent of what David HaMelech says in Tehillim. Of every tichla, of every desire, I have seen the end, but your commandments are exceedingly broad. His intent in tichla, desire, is not only that there is a limit to the material desires, but there is also a limit to the spiritual desire for divine wisdom. We're not talking about physical desires, but even when we're talking about spiritual growth and spiritual searching, seeking, and inspiration, there's a limit to it. And for the what's called the klos hanefesh, desire of our soul to return to the source in Hashem, as in the expression kol nafshi, my soul yearns, desires Hashem. This yearning to connect with Hashem has an end and limit, for every soul has a limit to its spiritual attainment and understanding. In other words, you can only be so inspired. You can be amazingly, profoundly inspired, right? And you can have this great level of feeling of connecting with godliness, but it's going to be all a measure. It's going to be all on a particular scale. But your commandments, however, your mitzvahs are exceedingly broad, meaning that Hashem's mitzvahs are broad in their capacity to receive the unlimited revelation of Hashem, since through performing mitzvahs, this causes an unlimited revelation of Hashem. This is why even though spiritual desire and yearning have a limit, but your mitzvahs are exceedingly broad. In other words, again, the amazing benefit of the mitzvah. And here's the good news. What if you do a mitzvah and you're not in the mood to do the mitzvah? I'm not finding it so inspiring. I'm going to shul, I'm giving tzedakah, I'm keeping Shabbos, I'm whatever. I mean, maybe it's not describing anybody here, but it's only human. Sometimes we don't feel in the mood. It's still a mitzvah. You still have all of the benefits of the mitzvah. We go, we hear a lecture, we hear a beautiful chazanus, we see some amazing presentation, and we can be so spiritually moved. Wow, that was amazing. But it's only going to be as amazing as our imagination can appreciate. Right? The mitzvah, on the other hand, even if we're not inspired by it, right? That is Hashem. That is Hashemness. It is exceedingly rechava mitzvascha ma'od. Your mitzvahs are exceedingly broad. This is the meaning of the verse. Ashrechem zorei al kol mayim. The verse is, fortunate are you who sow upon all waters, upon, over the waters, al kol mayim, every level of understanding of Hashem's revelation that can be attained in the upper and lower Gan Eden. It's called water, as the verse says, and a river flows from Eden. These are Kabbalistic metaphors, okay? So the idea of the flowing of water through the river is the idea of divine wisdom, which is the benefit of the soul, that the soul can understand godliness, okay? And it's compared to the idea of water, of the flowing of water. And these are revelations. What do we mean by revelations? Things that we can feel, things that we can sense, things that we can understand. But there's something much higher. However, regarding physical mitzvahs, their planting is a pond. They're above the waters, meaning above and beyond all of the levels of water, which refer to graspable revelation. So Hashem himself becomes manifest through the doing of a mitzvah. Hashem's was totally beyond any scale, any measure. When we do a mitzvah, that's his will, that's his wisdom. And yet we want to know why. We want to understand. We want it to resonate with us. We want to, what? This is the most amazing. The fact that we don't understand a mitzvah makes a lot of sense. It is such a lofty thing, right? It is such a beyond level. The fact that we can understand any mitzvah is remarkable. It's not remarkable that we have mitzvahs that we can't understand. How could we understand the Ein Sof, the infinite light, his wisdom and will becoming manifest in the mitzvah? But that's the point over here, is that beyond any level of inspiration, any level of divine attainment that we feel, that we refer to in the kind of the language of revelation. We love revelation. We love when things are revealed, when we know, when we understand, when we can experience. But there's something much higher than that. And that is Hashem's mitzvah. And then the Alter Rebbe says, so too with learning of Torah, similarly by learning Torah, which also descended to become invested in concepts relating to physical objects, we also effect an exponential growth through this. Okay. I used to take my kids on hikes. We'd go all over. We have California, many beautiful hiking places. We go to Yosemite or other places. And as we were going, I tell the kids, okay, it's time to plant a Torah seed. And we would recite a pasuk. One of the Rebbe has 12 verses and statements of our sages that the kids should know by heart. So we'd go, as we were going on our hike, we would plant a seed. We'd plant a seed by reciting a pasuk of Torah there. I said, we're planting a Torah seed right there and in that spot. And it'll, over time, it'll grow. We'll have to come back and see. So too, by learning Torah, which also descended to become invested in concepts relating to physical objects, we also effect an exponential growth through this. And therefore our sages said, fortunate is he who arrives here with his Torah learning in his hand, meaning in Gan Eden. He comes to Gan Eden, to paradise, after 120 years on this earth, and it says he's arrived with his Torah learning in his hand. Seemingly, however, this is a wonder, since above, speech of Torah, discussing physical things is completely unnecessary, such as these are the found objects that one must announce and similar. So the question the Rebbe is asking here is, a person studied Torah, and we're specifically talking about your study of Talmud and Jewish law. One of the most famous teachings of the Mishnah is two people are holding on to a garment, and each one says, "I found it." So what do we have here? We have conflict, we have an argument, we have a dispute, we have materialism. They're holding on to a piece of material. And that was for you, David. And we have they can't get along, they can't figure it out. They got to go to the Bezdin. The Bezdin is going to go and decide, and each one has to take an oath of what he found, right? Each one. This seems like a very human being kind of a problem, right? And most of the Mishnayot are dealing with very human being types of problems. We have all different kinds of Mishnayot and Baba Kama talking about if your ox gores another animal and it was pregnant, and you see the babies have come out, and we don't know if it was before it was gored or after it was gored, and all different types of physical situations. Why are these things helpful in heaven? That's the question the Alter Rebbe is asking. Why is it helpful to know these laws in heaven? He's coming. I studied Talmud. Yes, I studied. I know the Mishnah, two people holding on to a talus. So the Rebbe explains. However, for the seed to sprout, it needs to be specifically rooted and absorbed into the earth, and only then can it grow. Similarly, when one actually absorbs his Torah study to the extent that he's holding it in his hand, meaning that it has come down into the physical application in life, then from that can come an exponential growth, a great revelation, far greater than the limited revelation of Gan Eden. For there in Gan Eden, the soul is only enjoying a ray of the Shekhinah of the divine presence. So basically, you're coming with the Talmud. So the Talmud, the Alter Rebbe is explaining, the study of Torah also talks about a lot of physical things, just like mitzvot are physical. This is a mitzvah talking about how Judaism is grounded, quite literally. It's in the ground. It comes down to the ground, into the physical world. And when something is in the ground, of course, there's no light. There's no experience. There's no revelation. You don't see it. You don't feel it. But that's where the growth happens. That is where the growth happens. That is the whole idea of Torah and mitzvot, as we've studied many times, as we stated above as well in this discourse, that God desired to have a home in the lowest realm. And who are the ones who build that home? We are, each and every one of us, in our daily practice. So until now, the Alter Rebbe explained that Yaakov is Yud connecting to the Ekev, to the heel, which is the level of the Jewish people in this world who plant Torah and mitzvahs in this world. According to this, the verse means Habaim Yashresh, those who come to take root in this world. Yaakov are the family of Yaakov, the Jewish people. Now the Alter Rebbe will add that Yaakov also represents the Torah itself, which needs to be planted in this world. He will thus explain the verse, Habaim, the Jewish people who come into the world, Yashresh Yaakov, they cause Yaakov the Torah to take root. So now we're going to, again, so in this point in the Mimer, the Rebbe has been making the transition between the fulfillment of mitzvahs to the study of Torah. And this is the meaning of Yashresh Yaakov, causing Yaakov to take root by implanting and causing the level of Yaakov, which is the Torah, to become absorbed in the ground of the Jewish people. The Torah should actually become absorbed within us. And how do we see the association between Yaakov and Torah study. We see this. So the Alter Rebbe is not going to bring. That's the verse. He established testimony in Yaakov. And it says, grant truth to Yaakov. Titen emet liYaakov. Ein emes el Torah. What is truth? Truth is the Torah. So the result of absorbing one's Torah study is the continuation of the verse that then Yisrael flourished, he budded and blossomed, meaning it brings forth a revelation of Li. To me, there is internalized Rosh, the wisdom of the head, as is known. Alter Rebbe brings this in other discourses. And here's another interesting thing here. So you have the name Yisrael are the same letters as Li Rosh. Do you see that? You take the last letter, and the first letter is the Lamed Aleph, Li Rosh. Yisrael have the same letters as Li Rosh. I have the Rosh referring to the Chachma, the wisdom. So the Rosh becomes internalized to the point that I can say Li, that it is to me, it's mine. So the Chachma, the wisdom of Hashem, now becomes internalized within the Jew. And that is the higher level of Yisrael. And then the verse continues. Oh, gotta get rid of this. And the verse continues. This is what the original verse continues to say, and the Tevel, the world, will be filled with tenuva, with produce. And now we have another play on words here. Well, the simple meaning of tenuva is produce, food. It's an interesting Hebrew word, yaniv, and tenuva, tenuvat hasadeh, right, as we say in the bracha, the after bracha. But the word tenuva also spells tenuba, place it inside. This means to transmit it in a way that it is absorbed fully on the level of Tevel, of world, referring to Knesset Yisrael, who are called land of desire. We discussed above that at the spiritual level, the Jewish people exist on the spiritual realm of altogether as one soul in our source, and that is the land upon which we want to absorb the Torah. That the Torah and mitzvahs can be absorbed and implanted in them until they become revealed, as was previously explained regarding Yaakov planting and Yisrael sprouting Hashem's light. So basically what we have here is this interesting process that at the beginning it's planted, it's in the dirt, it's growing, it's rooting. But that, and also it's devoid of revelation. That's part of the idea of the roots. You say, I'm not into the roots of the plant. They're in the ground, they're dirty, they're not revealed. Well, that's the whole source of what it's all about. And only through that can you subsequently have the plant that now represents the revelation of the divine. And that's in the name of Yisrael. But you want to take that, but only when we take it, when we are on the lower level, can we absorb it, internalize it, and make it real. Then subsequently it can become revealed. Otherwise, we're not rooted, we're not grounded. And instead of something becomes revealed, but it just blows away. It just becomes chaff in the wind. But when it's rooted, and this is psychologically as well, when we don't feel the revelation of God, that is the perfect time to work on ourselves. A lot of times people have it backwards. It's like, I'll wait until I'm in the mood to work on myself to become a better Jew. No. When you're in the mood, or when you're inspired in a state of inspiration, that's very nice. but that inspiration perhaps was a gift from God. The time to work on ourselves is specifically when we don't feel, when we're not feeling it. And we still either we're able to bring ourselves to a point of inspiration, or at the very least, we still do our job. We still do what is required of us. That is the root work, right? And Hashem is rooting for us, that we should be successful in this process. But through that, the Alter Rebbe says, in the time of the Geula, in the time of the redemption, now we have the revelation. However, now nobody's been commenting or questioning or arguing, but we'll go forward. If anybody has anything to say, you can unmute, However, in order to draw the level of Yaakov and Yisrael down, three things are required. All right? We just need three things, and they are the levels of Abraham, Yitzchok, and Yaakov, where the three prayer services were established by the forefathers. So now we're going to talk about the prerequisite to drawing down the level of Yaakov, which is the root work, and then the Yisrael, which is the internalization and the revelation. But in order to get there, we need the levels of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Now, we need prayer to make this happen. So you may be familiar with the discussion of the Talmud. There's a debate in the Talmud, Brachas, page 27, about who established the prayers. Why do we have prayers? Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Chanina tells us that they were established by the forefathers. Abraham established Shacharis, and it brings a verse to show that. Yitzchok rather, established Mincha, brings a verse to show that. And Yaakov established Mariv, and it brings a verse to show that. There's another opinion in the Talmud, but the conclusion is that both are true. So certainly this idea that the forefathers established the prayer service, so there's some connection to the Avos. Now, when we say who established the prayer, I want to explain a Talmudic idea here, but it'll be significant. When you say prayer and discuss the idea of prayer in the Talmud, in the Talmudic sense, it's referring to the Shmona Esrei. The Shmona Esrei is really the definition of prayer. If a person has said the Shmona, it is the sine qua non. If you pray Shmona, if you do the Shmona Esrei, I'm not suggesting this, but if you do the Shmona Esrei and you do nothing else, you have fulfilled your obligation of tefillah, of prayer. If you do everything else, but you haven't done the Shmona Esrei, you have not fulfilled your obligation of prayer.
Rabbi?
Yes, please.
Okay, what I want to find out
Finally,
is if tefillah is supposed to be the substitute for the korbanot. Okay, how does this fit in with Abraham Avinu, Yitzchak, and Yaakov?
It doesn't. That was the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says there in the Talmud that the korbanos are instituted by because of the korbanos, in the place of the korbanos. So the Talmud goes through a whole discussion. Each one brings a brisa to prove his point. The conclusion of the Gemara is that the tefillos were established by the forefathers, and the times and regulations were set in accordance with the tefillos. So basically, it's a merging of both reasons. So those are two different reasons. One is that it's the avos, the forefathers. One is that it's the korbanos, the sacrifices, and both are true. And the Talmud actually concludes with both being true.
But how does the korbanot fit in with Yaakov, Abraham Avinu, and
it doesn't.
Yitzchak?
It doesn't. It was a second. It was I'm giving you the simple explanation here in the Talmud. One rabbi said the tefillos were the avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and another rabbi said no, it's not that. It's something else. It's the korbanos. It's the morning tamid, it's the afternoon tamid, and it's the burning of the limbs on the altar afterwards. So they were two different opinions.
I see.
They weren't the same opinion. The Talmud at the end says yes, both work together. They work in tandem. But Rabbi Yossi ben Reb Chanina and Rabbi Shua ben Levi were having a disagreement. They each had a disagreement. Which one is it? Now you can find some interpretation of how really you can find in Abraham the Korban Tamid and the connection to the sacrifices. I don't recall any discussion about that. But according to the simple reading of the Talmud, they're two different opinions. They're arguing. Yeah. So the Alter Rebbe here is going along with the opinion that it is. And again, the Talmud, according to the conclusion of the Talmud, you could speak either way because both are true. By the way, how do you say they are of the forefathers? In Aramaic, you would say the avos inun. The avos inun would be how you would say they are of the fathers. And some say that is the source for our word davin. It's a contraction of the avos inun. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what they say. Because davening, our accepted word for praying, it's a pretty unclear what the root or the etymology where that word came from. Davening, and it's a Yiddish word, right? You don't have the word davening in the Talmud. Daven to daven. I'm going to go daven. It's a beautiful word, right? I'm going to go daven. When you say duchen, duchning. We have some kohanim here. So if you're not a Kohen, you've watched a Kohen, so we say they duchen. So the word duchen, we know where it comes from because the place in the Holy Temple where they would stand was called the duchen, which was a platform. When you say duchening, although it sounds like maybe it's a Yiddish word, it's not. It's referring to a duchan, the platform upon which the step upon in the Holy Temple upon which the Kohanim would stand when they would give the blessings to the people, the Birchat Kohanim. So that word we know what the source is, but davening, a much more common word, where does that come from? So I've heard it's the avos inun. It's a contraction of this. It's of the forefathers in Aramaic. So that word contracted becomes davening. Again, like I say, I don't know if that's the fact of the matter, but that's what they say. So now what the Alter Rebbe is saying is that in order to have the power that the mitzvahs should come down into the earth, into the physical, and the Torah should come down, and that we should have the experience of Yaakov, and we should have the experience of Yisrael, there's a prerequisite. The prerequisite is Abraham, Yitzchok, and Yaakov. The Alter Rebbe is not going to explain through the idea of prayer. We're not going to learn the whole thing here, but at least we'll get a start on it. V'zeu inyan tefillah, and this is the goal of prayer. This is the idea of prayer. When we request in the prayer, particularly, like I said, we're talking about when we say prayer in the Talmudic term, we're referring to the Shmona Esrei. And what phrase repeats many times in the Shmona Esrei? Baruch Ata Hashem. Blessed are you, Havaya. Havaya is our way of referring to the four-letter name of God without pronouncing it. But that way we're not talking about God in general. We're talking about the specific manifestation of the Yud K Vav K. So blessed are you, Havaya, drawing you from concealment to revelation through Havaya as known and explained earlier in the Mimer. So Baruch is the way that we take something from the concealed state to the revealed state. If you recall earlier in the Mimer, we said the word Baruch was related to a pond of water, which is the revelation of the water that was coming from an underground stream. And now it becomes revealed. So it's the way that something goes from its source into revelation. So Baruch is that process of bringing something from its latency into revelation. That's what the word Baruch means, blessing. Wow. I mean, this Chassidic insight to the word blessing is enough for us to daven with more kavanah, understanding what the davening is about, drawing from the latent into the revealed. So ata, we said more about all these words, but here the Alter Rebbe is talking about we're drawing ata havaya, we're drawing from the latent into the revealed. But now apparently we need something before that. However, there must first be a sense of bitterness in one's being utterly distant from Hashem, as is stated, the lower waters weep, saying, we want to come before the king. Okay, now the Alter Rebbe is going into another component here. A person has to be bothered by the fact that he doesn't feel a closeness to Hashem. We have to have a merirus, the Alter Rebbe says, a bitterness. So what's this idea of the lower waters? You know the story with the lower waters? We'll just talk about the lower waters and we'll conclude with this. But the story with the he tells us right here. When Hashem first made the world, so all water was together. And if you read the story in Genesis, right, in Bereshit, right at the beginning there. And on the second day of creation, he separated the upper spiritual waters to ascend to heaven and the lower physical waters to descend to earth. So the lower waters, meaning the waters that we have right here on, planet Earth, so the lower waters cry to Hashem to return to their source in Hashem. So it's basically when something is disconnected from its source, the way that it cries out to be reconnected to its source. That's what the idea of the lower waters crying out. So we are down here, we're like those lower waters. Have you ever feel that you didn't have a good connection with Hashem? Well, then you're a human being, right? The point of the Alter Rebbe is not that you should never feel that way. The point of the Alter Rebbe is you should feel bitter by that. You should feel bothered by that you don't have a connection to Hashem and call out. Hashem,
Rabbi?
Just 1 second. All right, yeah, go ahead, Moshe.
I mean, this is something that is covered obviously in Ta'anit about the waters, the higher waters and the lower waters. But why would Hashem want the waters to cry out to be above again if we're here for a purpose to serve Hashem? Because we need it for the growing of the crops and we need it for so many other things. Why would Hashem want to allow the waters to be regrettable that
why is this a good thing? Why don't they just do their job? This is where God put you for an important purpose. Do your job.
And they should be happy that they're serving us here, right? Yeah. Why is that?
Very good question. Very good question. So Chassidus explains that the yearning of our soul, now we can extend that to the Jew as well, right? I want to be connected to Hashem. I want to be totally in Hashem, bask in Hashem's light. Hashem put me here in California, right? But I could, in one sense, I should just be happy that I'm here in this very place of great darkness and concealment, doing Hashem's will. A corollary to your question, right? The Chassidus explains a beautiful idea here, and that is that yearning keeps us connected to who we really are and our source. You see, so the process of yearning is actually the way that, sometimes a person can come down below. Let me give you an analogy. You like this analogy, okay? You have a secret agent. Imagine particularly somebody from Russia. So you're a Russian spy and you're coming to the United States and they put you in Miami Beach, Florida. You are living in Moscow. You are living in Stalingrad, wherever, right? And now you're sitting in Miami Beach as a spy, okay? What might happen to this spy? He's there in South Beach enjoying the partying, right? And everything, and enjoying the weather and all of the other things that go along with this. Is it possible that the spy might say to himself, you know what? I think life is good here, right? I'm using this as an analogy, Moshe, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He has to maintain his connection to what his job is. Now, I'm not, obviously, you have to take out of the picture here that we're not pro-Russian here, okay? I'm just using that as an analogy. Sometimes you can come to a place that externally is, boy, this place seems it's not so bad. You know, the weather is good. A person can come to a place of being complacent with where they're at now, the descent. And when you become complacent with the descent, you become disconnected to your source and unable to accomplish your purpose. So the whole idea of the yearning of the lower waters is when something is separated from its source, its nature is that it wants to be reconnected with its source. And that's the way that it spiritually, psychologically remains connected. And thus, because of that connection, it's now able to do its job. As opposed to this, someone coming to this lower place and saying, oh, this is good. I like it down here. This is the explanation that's given. All right. We'll take a break here. Any questions or comments or jokes? David, you have to have a good pun over here for us.
Oh boy, you put me on the spot here.
I'm sorry. I should have given you a 5-second
warning.
Okay.
Yeah,
Second notice.
give somebody else a chance. I'm blanking out.
Blanking out. I'll write that just like that, right? Right. Perform.
Yeah.
All right.
I told a story the other day about the chassid of the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov told him that you're going to make your livelihood after I pass away by going around and telling stories about the Baal Shem Tov.
Talk about story amnesia, right?
Right, and everybody went and did their thing. This one became a rabbi here. This one became a rabbi here, and this chassid became a storyteller. And he told stories about the Baal Shem Tov, and that's why he was making his livelihood. And finally, he got word that there was a man that he gave a lot of money to hear stories about the Baal Shem Tov. And he went to the wealthy man's house far away. And when he got there, he blanked out. He couldn't remember any stories. I won't tell the whole story, but
it's a great story.
It's a great story. Yeah.
It's a beautiful story. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful rest of the week. And
thank you,
Rabbi.
Yasher Koach.
Thank you.
Next week at this time. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Я хотела у него спросить.